His skin is white just like a ghost, thick Irish roots and his blonde hair. And he sounds like a Chicago superfan, a music nerd with a collection of CDs from here to there. Yes, Andy Dare is in Chicago, interviewing and barbecuing. It's the Andy Dare Show. It's the Andy Dare Show.
Welcome to the Andy Dare Show. This is episode 137. I am joined by a legendary noisemonger. His name is Tad Doyle. He hails from the Pacific Northwest. If you're any fan of my show, you know that I have a huge spot in my heart for the whole Seattle sound. That whole thing blew my mind in the early 90s, mid-90s. And they're still doing it. They're just doing it with different groups of bands. They're doing it with different new sounds. They're getting louder in some cases. They're getting quieter in some cases. All I know is I had a blast chatting with Tad. And excuse my voice, I've been getting over the flu. It hit me pretty hard about a week ago. I'm still getting rid of it. But yes, this was a bright light in an otherwise dark week for me. And the man is recently celebrating the brand new release, the self-titled debut album of a project that he's been in the works with for a couple years now. But this is their first album, Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. And out on Neurot Recordings. Check it out, neurotrecordings.com or taddoyle.com. Let me tell you this, it's an epic, loud, crazy, metallic, insane trip through the soul of Tad, and covers bases that he's never touched before. If you weren't a fan of Tad before, I would still check it out because it's something completely new from the guy. And we got into the recording of the new album. Got into his history with the band, Tad, and obviously they were a huge band for the whole Seattle movement. His whole grunge lumberjack, a menacing look was huge for the whole scene, and toured with Nirvana, toured with Soundgarden, released albums under the Sub Pop label. So if after you listen to this interview and you want to learn more about the whole journey of Tad Doyle and the whole story behind the band Tad, I would definitely do yourself a favor and check out the 2009 documentary called Busted Circuits and Ringing Ears. And it's an awesome doc. It goes through the whole story of the guy, from all the controversies, from being sued, from going on tour, from the highest highs and the lowest lows that bands could, possibly go through. It's all there in the documentary. And I think it's definitely worth checking out. And to hear what he's at now, do check out the Brothers of the Sonic Cloth album. In other news, I was recently inspired to start my own fanzine by reading Sub Pop USA. It's a collection by Bruce Pavitt. He's the owner of Sub Pop and what became one of the world's hugest, most influential record labels. Actually started as a little fanzine that the guy was doing it out of his house with a word processor, black and white, just giving his reviews and his opinions on local bands. And I kind of felt like we're kind of losing that whole local scene thing, having everybody have all the info that they need right at their phone. And so I started the Honeycomb magazine, and that's a thing that I've been doing out of my house. You can't follow it on Twitter, you can't like it on Facebook. All you got to do is contact me and give the show a call, 630-341-3022, and subscribe to the Honeycomb fanzine, and I will mail it to your mailing address. Unless you're homeless, you have a mailing address, and we won't spam you, we won't send you catalogs. We'll just send you a monthly issue of our homemade fanzine with music reviews, articles, all sorts of colorful info. And I want to thank the 20-something people that already subscribed to the first issue, the January issue. The March issue will be out next week. And, thank you so much for the support. And what else have we got? And since I have a feeling there will be some fans of the Seattle music scene tuning into this episode, I would like to have you check out our interview with Aaron Burkhardt, the original, the first drummer with Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic before they were Nirvana. And yeah, that was an interview I did in 2011, and I get a text from my buddy about 2 weeks ago. It was Kurt Cobain's birthday, and he said, "Guess what? Your name's mentioned in the Huffington Post." So I checked it out, and it was an interview with Aaron Burkhardt giving 5 cool, unheard stories about Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, and it mentioned my show and my interview. So I just want to thank the Huffington Post. And I put the link up at our HQ, andydare.com. You can't miss it. Just want to thank everybody who checked out the Aaron Burkhardt interview. And if you're still looking for more Seattle stories and interviews, I also interviewed Jack and Dino. That was in 2013. That's one of our highest played videos on YouTube. Whole lot of cool insides talk about the whole Seattle scene there. And, you know, the hundreds of bands that he's recorded. And also, check out the Fleecast interview with Steve Albini. That's another good one. That was back in 2011. And, that about does it. I want to keep my spiel to a minimum this week. Obviously, my voice isn't up to par. Getting a little bit better. But, thank you for your patience. Thank you for checking out the show, any new listeners that we have. And thanks for supporting our awesome sponsors. Over 4 years we've been doing this show now, and I want to keep doing it for over 50. After 54 years, I will definitely be interested in retiring. But without further ado, here is my episode 137, Telling the Sonic Truth, with special guest, Tad Doyle. Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out the Andy Dare Show. This is episode 137. I am joined all the way from the Pacific Northwest, Tad Doyle. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Andy?
Hey, not bad. Getting over the flu, but it's an honor to talk to a guy who's been in the music game for, coming on 30 years. And it's also a big year for you. You just released your brand new album with the Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. New project for you, and how's that going?
Good. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. Secondly, it's going really good. We released this on February 17th worldwide with Neurot Recordings, and we sold the vinyl out in 2 days. So they're going into a second pressing already.
I saw that. That's pretty cool. You've been slowly turning up like the sludge factor in your music for years. And this album seems to be like the finished product of that transition. Is this any way like a reaction against, Tad being signed to a major label, having to deal with all that major label nonsense for years in the 90s?
No, it's not reactionary to anything. It's really just kind of where my creative leanings have been going for quite a while. And, being a big fan of Black Sabbath, AC/DC,
sure,
Pink Floyd and the like for many years, and my formative years, it's just kind of like that's what I'm doing now. And I'd like to say that, as far as people wanting to expect things from us, don't expect anything, because we're probably going to throw you for a loop and do something unexpected.
That's awesome. And you got a track streaming up at taddoyle.com now. It's unnamed, and it's almost like an album and a song, really. There's got to be 5 or 6 different movements, different key changes, different moods going on. Is there any contemporary bands that are influencing you nowadays? What's a new band that you've been listening to?
Well, it's probably not new to a lot of people, but it may be. I'm a big fan of Yob, of course.
Sure, yeah.
YOB. Been listening to master musicians of Bukkake lately.
Okay.
I listen.
Unknown of those guys, but that sounds interesting, right?
Yeah, check out their record Far West.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
Nice.
That's basically Randall Dunn's band. He's a Pacific Northwest engineer here and awesome musician.
Cool.
And let's see, lots of other things. A list that's just probably too deep to get into, but suffice to say, I listen to a lot of symphonic music. I love Edgard Varese, and he's one of my favorite composers ever.
Cool.
And, just a smattering of this, a smattering of that. little bit of black metal, a little bit of pop, a little bit of rock, and some jazz, to round it out.
Sounds good. How about like the desert stoner rock style? I just recently got into Sleep after seeing them here in Chicago. It was a friend's recommendation. I had not really heard of them. I'd heard of Dope Smoker and all that stuff, but yeah, we saw them live and it was pretty incredible. The one song lasting for 60 minutes, going into different movements, finding new territory. Are they any way of an influence?
Well, they've influenced a lot of the people who I find influential, and certainly, I love the band and respect what they do. They are definitely one of the forerunners of that, epic, for lack of a better word, structures and lengths of songs that really move and do something. And of course, big fan of Matt Pike and the like.
Sure.
Anything he's involved with. So, yeah.
And I'm guessing that you produced this yourself because you got Witch Ape Studios and stuff. Is that true?
Well, a lot of it was tracked here at Witch Ape Studio, and we decided to enlist Billy Anderson, producer-engineer, who, by coincidence, recorded the first Sleep record as well.
Nice.
He's legendary. He's been in Melvin's. He's done so much stuff. And I just thought that his treatment would be a fit for what we do, and I was right. And I respect and love the guy, so he had full reign to do what he was liking to do and what he wanted to do. There was no limitations on things, and then I just helped share what my vision for the music is with him.
Cool.
So we could get something that was, pleasing to both parties. And I think the result speaks for itself. I'm really happy with the record.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's super epic, as you said. And did you meet him back in the Tad days, or have you had a long lasting relationship too with him?
I've ran into him here and there over the course of many years, and never really got to get a chance to sit down with him because he collects no dust, as we all know.
Sure.
He's very busy, and I got to know him a lot at our mixing sessions for the record that we did over Everything Hurts, his studio in Portland, Oregon.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a huge guy who believes in producers shaping an album. It's always interesting to try to guess who produced an album. You've obviously shared the studio with lots of legendary producers, Butch Vig, Steve Albini, Jack Endino. I've got to interview a couple of those guys, and Jay Mascis. Of those four guys, who do you think was the best fit for your sound when you were recording with them?
Well, all those guys were perfect for the time, that we were together. I'd like to mention also that there's a couple other guys that have been really influential to me in engineering and have mentored me to an extent. Kurt Ballou from Converge. Also, John Agnello, that's Angello. He was actually the guy that mixed our Inhaler record for Tad. Mascis had to go home because his father sadly passed away during the session, so he wasn't really present for it.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of funny that he gets all that credit for quote-unquote producing that record, but when in actuality it was the band Tad with John Agnello.
Huh, okay, nice. Well, yeah, he's not known for being a producer, but he has done stuff with like Mike Watt's Firehose and stuff like that. But it's interesting to see somebody who's known for being a lead guitarist, a band leader, taking the producer's chair. Is that something? I know that you do a lot of out of your own studio. You're producing younger bands now. Is that true?
That's correct. I love doing this. It's always been a passion of mine to be involved in the recording process. And, I'm relatively late to the game as far as things go. There's a lot of younger guys out there that are just, killing it the whole time. And so I'm a relatively newcomer to this thing. But I do have a background in analog, and I have had to record records to tape, which means that you got to get it right.
Sure.
First time. There's none of this fix it in the mix Pro Tools bullshit that people do these days. So I think that's one of the great things I get to bring to the table for a lot of bands is, we're not going to fix it in the mix. You're going to get it right the first time.
Well, you definitely share that with Steve Albini. Got to go to Electrical Audio and interview him. he shares a lot of your same passions, and especially when we brought in our Tascam 4-track to record the interview on, that won us points, So
I bet.
And yeah, is it something like producing a younger band? It's kind of neat because it's not all on you. It's you get to just give your 2 cents, but then pull back and let them kind of be responsible for the overall sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Steve and many other engineers share this sentiment that the word producer should be thrown out the window, because that's basically somebody who comes up with money for things to happen and then kind of drives it into the ground and usually ruins things.
Sure.
So I think that I'm more of an engineer and hopefully a conduit for a vision of a band and to interpret what they're trying to get at and to move forward with what they want to sound like, and hopefully share my knowledge and creativity with them as well. I think that's more what I do with bands rather than, I know that people like to use a word like produce, but that's an ugly name for me.
Yeah, I can agree. And hearing younger bands come out with their, EPs and stuff like that, I can definitely tell when it's done on a laptop. Can definitely tell that the Brothers record is recorded. Was it analog, this whole thing, or was it bits and pieces done analog, or it just got a warm, fat sound? I love it.
It's a hybrid of both, and we did do mastering to tape with Justin Weiss out of San Francisco. He's an awesome mastering engineer, and he really did a great job on the mastering, and it is mastered to tape and then bounced back to digital. But there's something about analog tape that is just magical still to this day. Although digital is getting really good, analog is still, it's easier to listen to. It's not as fatiguing, and it's certainly more pleasurable and has a longer lasting shelf life as far as I'm concerned.
I could definitely agree with that. How about like the biggest irritation that you guys had to deal with being on a major label? Did they ever want you to play this type of music, dress this certain way? Did they want you to play up the grunge factor in your clothing and stuff?
Well, probably the most annoying thing of dealing with a major label, and certainly just big companies as well, is that they don't really seem to know what to do with a band like I was in, Tad. They really didn't know what to do with us. They didn't understand us. There was no artist development going on. It was simply them wanting to cash in and throw something out there and see if it stuck. And the plus of it was there was big money in it. The downside of it is they didn't really know what the hell they were doing to work with us,
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely tell they were just giving you like a one-off shot. If it sticks, they'll keep running with it. But they didn't really have the faith in you guys. They didn't have the faith in Mudhoney. Didn't have the faith in a lot of these bands. Some guys were able to break through, like your Soundgardens, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it was just, hey, we'll give you one little chance. We're not going to really push you. It's up to the public to eat it up. And, I mean, I could see how that would be kind of nerve-wracking on a young band.
And, I'm fine with all that, too, with them thinking that way. However, I don't want them to waste my time because essentially, and other people who are really serious about what they do with their art, it's just kind of like insulting for them to want to shape you into something when you are what you are. And that should be the reason, like they were get with you to begin with, to put some records out.
Sure.
That's one of the things I really love about working in the past with Sub Pop and now working with especially Neurot Recordings. They're just completely understand what we're about. They're passionate and no bullshit about the music. And they share a vision with us and they've spent many, many years building this legacy for themselves, and now they get to share it with people like us and many other bands. I feel pretty stoked and blessed to be a part of it.
Hell yeah. Now that the album's out, I mean, I'm sure if you were on Elektra, they'd be like, okay, your first week's numbers aren't that great, we're done with you. But like Neurot, are they going to keep, being behind you, sending you, to different things, getting interviews, stuff like that, pushing it, make sure that it gets the ears on it? That's the most important thing, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I look forward to, is working with them on a long-term basis. I completely respect and love the legacy that they've built, as well as the bands that they put out. They're just amazing. One of the things I would mention is that when we worked with a major label, going back to like, do they want to shape you? One of the times when we were mixing, sending off mixes for Inhaler that was on Giant Warner, the label guy contacted our manager at the time and said, "We're not hearing a single." That they weren't a pop song coming out of this. They weren't hearing It Smells Like Teen Spirit or a beat. And
sure.
Response.
You're breaking up a little bit. You got hello?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, just got a couple more. Here's a couple Twitter questions I got. Yeah, this one's from Jay from Staten Island, New York City. He goes, I am social media manager for the Meat Puppets. Do you have any stories of meeting with the Meat Puppets?
I don't recall. It's many years ago if I did meet them. I don't recall meeting them, but I'm sure I did.
Nice. And I got one from Ryan from Chicago. He goes, how about the Dick Johnson Legal Defense Fund? Did any of the proceeds from 8-Way Santa or that documentary ever go to him? Is he the guy convicted of trying to blow up British Army helicopters? Does that make any sense?
It does. No, he wasn't a criminal of any sort. That was our friend, Richard Johnson, who was a close personal friend of Kurt Danielson's, and we made this folklore story up about him, and it was more just of like a joke and having fun than anything. And certainly he did receive a lot of the funds because he smoked them and drank away a lot of them.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow, nice. Okay, yeah, I just want to thank you for taking the time out. I got two more questions for myself, if that's cool. How about any special memories sticking out in your brain from those halcyon days spent in the van with the guys from Nirvana?
Nothing in particular sticks out. It was just fun being with them and hanging out, playing live shows with them. It was just a fun time. I like to keep that to my personal memories. I'm not the kind of guy that would write a book about it or blather on about whatever they were about, but they're good people, and we're stoked to be a part of their lives when they were there, and try to stay present in the present now.
Sure. Did you get to see any of those Sonic Highways episodes with Dave Grohl?
My wife Peggy watched a lot of them. I watched a lot of it. I watched the Chicago one, which I was very interested in.
Sure, yeah.
With Steve Albini, and a lot of the great bands that I looked up to came out of there, Naked Ray Gun and such. And,
oh, yeah.
Dave Grohl is just an amazing talent, and I don't see how he does all these things and has all these irons and all these fires all the time. He must be very busy.
And he still seems sane, which is crazy, doing all these things. I thought it was going to be a victory lap and stuff, but I think he did a great job on it, shining a light in different, indie circles that previously people didn't really get a light shine on. So I thought it was a cool thing.
For sure. And keep in mind, when you're watching a show like that, that's through the eyes of Dave Grohl.
Sure.
There's many truths out there, and they always say that history is written by the victor.
That's true.
Don't take everything for just face value. Dig deep.
Yeah, I like that, Tad. Okay, last one here. Has social media helped or hurt rock music? Is it going back to the days where Bruce Pavitt was writing his, fanzines on Sub Pop and giving his reviews on live shows? Is that come full circle? Are we doing that now, or is it a little bit too much info sharing?
I don't need to see pictures of your cat, daily, or, things like I think there is a value to social media, and it connects people in a way that wasn't possible many years ago. When Tad the band was touring, we didn't have, the internet was just starting out, and we didn't have like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, the whole litany of social media. And I think it's good for people to be able to connect and get to know. I wish I had that resource when I was younger. I would have been completely checking out YouTube videos of Black Sabbath way back when,
Oh, sure, yeah.
But, I think it's a good thing. It just depends on how it's used.
I can totally agree with that, and that's a beautiful note to end on. Brothers of the Sonic Cloth, self-titled album, out now, taddoyle.com, neurotrecordings.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
And, the first vinyl pressing sold out. There will be a second. You can get it on digital, get it on compact disc, I'm guessing?
Yeah, CDs are still available at neurotrecordings.com and find record stores and support local record store day and get out there and buy some music.
Sure.
Also, there is standalone digital MP3s available at the Neurot Recordings website as well. So if you don't want to have a physical copy, vinyl or CD, you can always just get digital and
sure
hang out that way.
Super easy. Are you going to be planning on touring off this record?
Yes, we're going to be playing some West Coast dates in May, and then we're going to be heading to Europe late June and July for festivals, do a couple weeks there, and then we're going to be doing some sporadic shows here and there around the United States. New York, Chicago are in the works, and possibly some other dates.
All right, sounds good. If you come to Chicago, I'd love to say hi. And, just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking, 20 minutes out of your day. I learned a lot. I've been a fan for 20-plus years. I love what you're doing with the new sounds. And, any last words, Tad?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, Andy. I really appreciate it and would look forward to meeting you as well.
Awesome. Sounds great. On behalf of Tad, this is Andy signing off for the Andy Dare Show. This episode of the Andy Dare Show is brought to you in part by Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue in Westmont, Illinois. Family owned and operated since 1997, Uncle Bub's is the real deal barbecue. A family-friendly restaurant open 7 days a week. Also, it's a full-service catering company doing weddings, pig roasts, luau's, grill packages, you name it. They have a friendly, helpful staff that will make sure that your party goes off without a hitch. Call them at 630-493-9000. Visit them at 132 South Cass Avenue in Westmont, Illinois, and UncleBubs.com. Hey man, I know you like grilling. I know you like getting those dark grill marks on your burgers, fish, chicken. And I know you don't want to just dry your meat out like you're cooking with a hairdryer. Why not get the Man Grate and click through the AndyDareShow.com's banner so we can keep the lights on here at Honeycomb Hideout Studios in gorgeous Westmont, Illinois. The Man Grate. This episode of the Andy Dare Show is brought to you in part by Record Utopia, a music lover's dream with thousands of vinyl records, musical instruments, and sound gear. They buy, sell, and trade. Give them a call at 630-963-1957. Visit them in Westmont, Illinois at 309 West Ogden Avenue, on the web at recordutopia.com. It's always a good, relaxed atmosphere. Check them out, Record Utopia. Be sure to follow Andy on Twitter. That's at Andy Dare. And like our show on Facebook. That's facebook.com/The Andy Dare Show. Videos at youtube.com/Andrew Martin Dare. And we're on iTunes. Just search The Andy Dare Show. Please leave a review. Thanks so much to our wonderful sponsors, Uncle Bub's award-winning barbecue, Record Utopia, The Man Grate, and Amazon.com. Theme song courtesy of Rich Banks Music. Thank you so much for checking out The Andy Dare Show. TheAndyDareShow.com.